Hello from India, Mr. Maher. This humble Indian says, Vanakkam. They put an Indian guy in charge of alphabet. But then again, we've been lords of the alphabet ever since the first brown kid found out about the spelling bee. Indian people everywhere are so stoked. Sundar Pichai grew up in an India where an entire generation was just starting to dream. And even dreaming was hard back then. Our version of the rat race had close to 1 billion people. Sundar and others are literally living the Indian dream by living the American dream. And in an America where the Statue of Liberty was reimagined in 2017 and immigration is dividing America at the seams, look no further than Indian Americans for reassurance that immigrants can add to the American dream and not just feed off of it. In one generation, we went from running Quickie Mart to farming unicorns in Silicon Valley. And we're not just IT guys now. We're doctors, scientists, senators and CEOs.
Holy crap, are we nerdy?
And artists who can start with the mother of all spoilers and write an entire movie around it. But because, on average, we caused less trouble, smuggled fewer drugs, and flew fewer planes into buildings, we are victims of racism by omission. Mr. Maher, if the liberals, PCs and hippies who congregate at your church are wondering why this brown guy is telling them stuff they don't want to hear, in this episode, I intend to prove at the court of the Church of Bill Maher that they sort of maybe need to hear this.
And I'm not going to abandon
and for my first witness, I call upon the Green New Deal. Climate change deniers have made it amply clear that they love the greenback more than they hate greenhouse gases.
Also have a political
and while America are still playing who smelt it dealt it with their farm animals, AOC comes along and throws a curveball. She made some fans all over the world. The message was on point.
We need to save ourselves.
We need holistic and transformational changes, not just incremental fixes. The Green New Deal was also like letters to penthouse for Mars nerds. What better way to practice terraforming Mars than to start right here on Earth? A teenage Elon Musk would have had all 14 pages of it tucked away under a mattress somewhere. AOC and Greta are darlings of woke liberals the world over. The Green New Deal fired a first salvo in the world's oldest democracy. But the world's largest democracy are doing transformational stuff too. Back in 2016, when you guys were busy making America great again, India launched our own International Solar Alliance, a consortium of 121 mostly developing countries that get sunlight through the year for power generation. And like the Green New Deal, it is strategic and visionary. It talks of how participating governments will direct policy to enable a climate for disruptive innovation in solar power generation. The alliance aims to add 1 terawatt of solar power to the world's grid by 2030. That is a shitload of cow farts. And around the same time, when India were doing this, Macron's missus was getting more attention in America. That is racism by omission. Even Stephen Colbert is guilty of racism by omission. The Indian dude who launched the ISA met 50,000 Indian Americans.
At an event in Texas called, and this is real, Howdy Modi. Howdy Modi.
Holy moly.
Actual name.
You too, Mr. Colbert? I'm a fan. I genuinely giggle when you dance to Caravan, and that is a big deal because we're raising twins and that giggle gives me hope that I can still feel something. But why did you have to follow Agent Orange all the way to Houston and not listen to any of the brown people there? There was a football stadium full of us. I'm sorry, Mr. Colbert, but you're guilty of racism by omission, just like today's episode of Meanwhile, 6 million Indians died in British-induced famines in 1943. That's as many Jews as the Nazis killed during the Holocaust. But let's never talk about it. Winston Churchill couldn't help being a drunk, racist murderer. And besides, most of his victims were brown. Meanwhile, British Secret Services sent a dick pic of Winston Churchill to Eva Braun just before Normandy. That's what the D in D-Day actually stands for. Now I don't know this for a fact, I just know it's true. Winston Churchill's little head looks just like a shriveled up version of his actual head. Mr. Colbert, here's a new rule for white people.
And finally, new rule.
Woke white people who think Holocaust deniers are being racist, uninformed bigots become racist bigots when they are uninformed. Mr. Maher, I believe I've proved that Indians are victims of racism by omission. Now here's the part where American liberals could have done better by giving a few f***s. Bill Clinton imposed sanctions on India for nuclear tests carried out in 1998. Here's what he had to say.
Just last week, India conducted a series of nuclear explosive tests, reminding us that technology is not always a force for good.
What's so funny?
Is your American accent, everything you say sounds stupid.
Ironically, in the same speech, he speaks of getting the US ready for the next war. For America, every war was an away match. One terrorist incident and you guys invaded two countries. India faces more immediate threats. We only had to do those tests because China already had, and they were helping our neighbors to the west build what they call, and I'm not making this up, the Islamic bomb. Both countries have repeatedly violated India's sovereignty. In hindsight, I think what Clinton put in his cigars was definitely more interesting than what he put his cigars in. Clinton's racism by omission denied India access to civilian nuclear technology. It took Obama to fix it in 2007. But not before India's civil nuclear program was set back by 2 decades. That is a shitload of CO2 the world could have done without. In fact, India started the International Solar Alliance partly because of racism by omission from the NSG. So if you guys are dreaming of a Green New Deal over there, but American voters are happy with an old orange deal, India are open for any new green experiment. Send your dollars and technology over here. That's what you liberals would have heard if you ever bothered to listen to what this brown guy had to say. Mr. Maher, I started this episode with how Indian Americans have for the most part been ideal immigrants. We integrate very well, but not all immigrants do, and that's becoming an election issue in every major democracy today. This humble Indians' contention is that when the global left deny that immigration is an actual issue that needs actual fixing, it becomes analogous to denying climate change. Look, I admit, Trump putting children in cages was heartbreaking. But liberals must ponder over the inconvenient truth that the nature of immigration has changed over the last 2 decades. And that uncontrolled immigration opens people up to worse exploitative extortion than anything Trump can dish out. A real debate is warranted if the root problem is to be addressed. What I'm trying to tell you is that if unnatural beasts like Brexit or Trump's wall are able to buy votes, it isn't because everyone who bought in are racist bigots. It's because every time they try to bring the issue up for discussion, liberals conceded no ground and instead labeled them racist bigots. Now you guys may have heard some news about developments in India regarding citizenship. And if you haven't, it's material that liberal nightmares are made of. In my next episode, I intend to go to there and try to explain to you guys why India did what it did. Till the next episode, AOC and Greta, you go girls.
Take me to the magic of the moment on a glory night where the children of tomorrow dream away. Winds of change, winds of change.
Meanwhile,